I'm finding new people on there that I'm like, oh my gosh, how was I not in your community and vice versa before? And it's just very refreshing, which is the same vibe that I get from TikTok, but not everyone gets that vibe because they have to get on camera.
Welcome to Marketing Stuff, the show where we make marketing seem so much more approachable and give you actionable marketing advice that you can apply to your life, to your business, or your transition into your marketing career. I'm Maurice A. Davis, aka your on-demand CMO. If you're returning, thank you so much for being part of the family. And if you are new to the channel, well, welcome to the Gates of Victory Village. We're happy to have you. On today's show, we're going to be talking about short form content and how you can utilize that in either your marketing strategy or to grow your business. We have a fantastic guest, and she is all about the short form content. She transitioned from speech pathologist to social media rock star, and she helps service business owners get over the fear of creating short form content. Everybody, welcome Sarah to the show. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today and being willing to do this. Let's give them some context about who you are. You just had a pretty big life event happen and all this stuff cooking. So share a little bit about you and how you went from teaching speech and what you're up to today.
Yeah, so you reached out to me right before my wedding. I got married on June 10th of 2023, and now I'm like back into the world of social media and short form video and all fun things marketing.
Yeah.
And I transitioned from the field of speech pathology, which is a very fancy term for speech therapy.
Okay.
And how I did that was I actually was listening to podcasts on my commute to work. And then I stumbled upon marketing podcasts. And then I listened to an episode of a podcast where a teacher transitioned to making like a full-time income as a social media manager. And I'm like, dude, I could totally do that.
Yeah. So that's so interesting. So are you a Rachel Peterson fan?
So I didn't know anything about Rachel Peterson until I like started diving into like any free resources that I could get my hands on.
Okay.
I didn't even know that like the position or field of social media manager existed.
Yeah.
Literally discovered it randomly through podcasts.
Yeah. So it's really great because I didn't know that you started that way, right? Like it's always
Yeah.
interesting how people kind of get their start into the marketing space because the thing that you don't know or thing that you don't learn very early on is that almost anything that you want to do, you can do inside the marketing area. And that's not something that they talk about when you're in, high school trying to pick your careers. And it's definitely not something that you learn when you're in like a corporate marketing department. And so there are so many different things that people can do. And a lot of people on my channel are either new marketing professionals, or let me be more specific, they're people that are trying to transition into marketing from somewhere else. So whether it be a speech pathologist or financial advisors, they're realizing that this is going to be a much better fit for them, or they're small business owners trying to like wrangle this beast of marketing. And so I think your story is perfect. If I wish I could say I did it on purpose, but I didn't, right? So when you were getting started, like what are the resources were you using to try to piece together this knowledge of social media and marketing and kind of figure out where you were going to go?
Yeah. So I immediately took on the mindset of it's not if I can make this happen for myself full time, it's just when, because I
Yeah.
was like, I will 100% do this.
Yeah.
And I was so stubborn. I did not invest in one course, in one ebook, in one mentor. I literally milked every free resource that I could possibly get my hands on, be it
Yeah.
YouTube videos, podcasts, just like free lead magnets that people had. And I just taught myself everything I know
Okay.
through testing and doing.
Yes. Yes. Now, how long did that process take you?
Yeah, so it took me from when I discovered that podcast and I
Mhm.
found out about the fact that social media was a real career, it took me maybe like 2 months to get my first client,
Okay.
and then probably within the span of 6 months, I quit my job and went full time. Like, I
Nice.
was not effing around.
Nice. So that's that's a very accelerated journey, right? Because there are folks that have been at this for a while and still haven't really figured out the space where they fit, right? So what do you think it was for you that was like, I know that I'm gonna do this thing. So social media is the thing for me. How did you figure out, as you, especially as you were diving into this content, I'm sure that you were getting thrown other elements of marketing and you didn't deviate. How did you know that social media was the right place for you?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think that the main answer is that I leveraged my beginner energy and
Okay.
the fact that I was so incredibly naive to all the shoulds and shouldn'ts. And I just did. I took
Yeah.
action. And I think that when you go too deep into all the gurus and all the shoulds and shouldn'ts, then you like pump the brakes, you don't take action, you second guess yourself, you stay stuck in this like learning phase, which it's always
Yeah.
great to learn. I'm constantly learning. But it does you a disservice at a point because you're not taking action. So I think the fact that I was so naive to all of the shoulds and shouldn'ts and everything like that, and I just like started flinging offers out there and started testing different marketing channels and different types of content, I think that that really worked in my favor to like speed things up.
Mm, okay. Okay, so you talked about you were testing, right? So when you say you were testing, were you testing on your social media to see what was getting you more engagement, or did you immediately jump into like throwing out offers?
So both.
Okay.
I was testing, first of all, I was testing different platforms,
Mm,
literally down to like a Facebook business page, Instagram, TikTok.
yeah.
And then I realized that I was getting like tons of traction on TikTok.
Yep.
And so just as like humans, it's like when you get a little like taste of results, you're like more. And so it really led me to like dive deep into TikTok and short form video and reels eventually. And then instead of testing platforms, I was testing content. So what kinds of messaging was working, aka like the words that are coming out of my mouth, what's resonating with my audience?
Yeah.
What like formats are working? Do they like my hot takes? Do they like the tip videos? Do they like hearing about my story as a human being? Like
Yeah.
literally just testing everything and then listening to my audience in the form of like, are they commenting on this? Are they sending me a DM after? And like really paying attention to the things that like stuck with my audience.
Yeah, I think that leads really perfectly into the next question of like how you landed on short form video content, right? You're like, I was just trying stuff. And then finally I found the thing that was working best for me and then optimized for that, right? And to my transitioning folks or to my new marketers, a lot of times we get so stuck on optimization, kind of to your point, Sarah, you're like, you get stuck in learning. You're trying to optimize something that doesn't exist yet. And you can get fixated on this learning. I'm definitely guilty, right? I'm a hyper analytical. And so, like, I'm like, what's steps 1 through 20? And the truth is, you don't need to know that, right? You need a few steps that you can take action on and then start figuring out what's working for you and then just keep trying a bunch of stuff, and then you slowly start figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Oh shoot, I can't think of his name, but I was just looking into his course yesterday, and he is Joel Irway, I think. But he's the guy that kind of came up with the concept of the power offer. And
I don't
that
even think I know what that is.
yeah, we'll talk offline because it's
Okay.
epic. It's epic. And what's what's funny is you probably are using the structure, right?
Mm,
Kind of the way you talk about it is very much that structure, but he's kind of like known for like putting a name to it and then showing people how they can do it with some level of intentionality. And that's essentially what he talks about in his course. He's like, dude, like, we're gonna make this easy. Go out there, throw some offers out, like
yeah.
test it, and if it's not working, don't keep going. Like, figure it out and figure out why it's not working. Come back and iterate. So it sounds like that's a lot of what you're doing. So walk us through like your creative process, because you're saying that, well, I test all these things, but how did you get to a place where you're like realizing that this is an element that I want to test, and then creating that process to be able to say, I'm going to, test the same message, but then across, leveraging these different formats or these different hooks? Because I think sometimes just even that concept can become overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, back to your 2 points of, like, people optimize things until, like, the death of them. I didn't even know what optimizing was. Okay? So that's
Yeah.
1. And 2, how did I test things and how did I land on short form video? So this is important, and this, I think, applies to everybody listening, is there are thousands, if not millions of people that do exactly what you do. And I realized that very early on.
Oh,
There
yeah.
are millions of people that want to be social media managers, right? Just reading the bare bones of like a social media job description, it's like, oh, that's very appealing. Like, sure, I want to quit my job and do that. So lots of people were being social media managers. And I'm like, well, they don't have my sense of humor.
Yeah.
They don't have my background. They don't have my story. And so I found that a very quick way for people to get to know me, hear my voice, hear that I'm approachable, hear that I like am humorous like 99% of the time, the best way that I found to do that was through video, because it's literally like people are hanging out with me on FaceTime. And
Okay.
so I that made me go headfirst into it, because again, early on, I'm like, you gotta differentiate yourself in this sea of people that are doing exactly what you're doing.
Right. I like that. I like that. The concept of I'm hanging out with somebody on FaceTime is so critical to your success, especially on platforms like TikTok. Um, I remember transitioning from like IG, not IG, from LinkedIn and Facebook over to TikTok, and I really struggled at first. I struggled to conceptualize content. I struggled to because it's like now you got to take the polo off. Now you got to take the button up off, and you got to put on a t-shirt and be somebody's friend. And it was like,
Mhm.
oh, this is different, and it felt different. And until I kind of realized, like, you know what, this whole time on these different content platforms, I've been pretending to be someone that I'm not. And if I let that go, then I can be myself across all the platforms to make this easier. It didn't feel different anymore. So talk to us a little bit about how you kind of combat that, right? That I don't want to say fake voice we put on, but the call center voice everybody puts on when they're on the phone and they think it's a business call. I feel like we get that same thing when we press the red button on our phone.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like TikTok is so refreshing. And probably when this comes out, everybody will know about Threads, which is the new Instagram app. But Threads actually has quite a similar feel
Yeah.
of like peeling back the Instagram and LinkedIn mask that is like stifling your personality and quite honestly making you boring,
Yep.
and like actually letting us see like the real raw unfiltered unhinged version of you, because that is what is going to draw your people to you. That's what's going to draw a community to you. If
Yep.
you're just being boring and stuffy and saying what everyone else is saying and maybe just using like a few different words, it's like, all right, I've seen that before, been there, done that. But
Yeah.
like when you actually infuse like your real personality and your real story into things, then people are like, "Oh, T, like I can totally relate to that."
It's funny you say that because I was up late last night on Threads. Okay.
Oh, same. Hours.
I feel like everybody on like in the marketing space, social media space was like, oh, Threads. Like I think we're learning the power of being early, and a lot of us are
Mm,
trying to not be late.
yeah.
Uh but you'll always get this like rush. It's kind of like the gym in New Year's.
Yeah.
You get this massive rush of people that are there in the beginning, and then they'll start to fade off, and then there'll be, the folks that everybody will call the OGs. They'll hang out for a while, and then we'll see what the platform actually ends up being. I'm curious because there's been so many new platforms that it's hard to keep up. I totally missed the Blue Sky thing. I didn't like it wasn't until like probably about a couple weeks ago that somebody was like Blue Sky, and I didn't realize the whole time when people were talking about Blue Sky that they were talking about a social media platform. I'm like, okay, whatever. But
Yeah, I
there
don't
are
even know what that is.
oh my gosh, there are so many platforms. I have you heard of Clapper?
I have heard of Clapper. I
Okay.
just talked about this today. I've heard of Clapper and I've heard of Lemonade.
Okay. Yep.
And I got on them and it was like it was kind of a flop for me. But
Yes.
I feel like the energy of Threads, which is Instagram's new social media platform,
Yep.
it's very similar to Twitter. Just to put
Yep.
it in perspective for those of you that don't know, uh, someone related it to saying that it's like the comment section of TikTok got its
Ooh.
own platform. And I was like, yes, those are the exact vibes that I am getting from it. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens, but it has been quite literally years since like the masses have been excited and like actually pleased with a social media platform, and
Yep.
like everyone I talk to is like eating it up and loving it.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that the challenge with it right now is that it's the Wild West phase.
Oh yeah, that's what makes it
And
fun.
yeah, but it's like people are struggling to figure out like how do I find the people that I want to find? Because right now it's just like pew pew pew.
It is. But you know what? That's what makes it fun. And
Yeah.
that's what like I'm finding new people on there that I'm like, oh my gosh, how was I not in your community and vice versa before? And it it's just very refreshing, which is the same vibe that I get from TikTok, but not
Yep.
everyone gets that vibe because they have to get on camera.
Yes, I would totally agree as far as the vibe, like the threads passing the vibe check, right?
Yeah.
Like if you like TikTok, but you don't necessarily want to get on camera, but you love the vibe, then threads, right? If you're a writer and you can get down, threads is definitely going to be a space where you're going to be able to, really, really make an impact, right?
Yeah.
Uh, because it just is so freeing at this moment, right?
Yes.
Uh, we are starting to see some people like trickle over, and I think some folks are saying that there's already like the Instagram spammers The IG spammers have already started dropping their comments. So, uh,
Oh, I know. And there were like the funniest comments that's like, how many hours until someone releases like a Threads course or a Threads ebook? And I'm
yeah,
like, no, just let us play for
yeah.
now.
Oh my god. So there's already been some like it wasn't a course, but there's some folks that are throwing some stuff out there that I think is very relevant. Um, if so, but again, anybody listening to this, you take it with a grain of salt. If you approach Threads very similarly to Twitter pre ads,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to land in a space where you're going to be generating content that people are actually going to like. Uh, once, in most cases, once ads come to a platform, that's when stuff starts getting weird.
Yeah.
And so there, I can't think of his name, but he posts quite a bit of content on TikTok and YouTube on like growing your social following, and he posted a link over to a Notion page of like tweets. It's not he's not charging anything for it. He's like, these are just some tweets. Like if you're trying to like figure this out, here's some tweets that you can go to start grabbing some good templates and some structure and pay attention to how they're writing and the spacing and what they're saying. And you're going to be able to like much better nail this threads thing in the beginning. And I liked a lot of his context. And I mean, I think I read 3 or 4 of them and I was like, you know what? Let me make some of those adjustments to my threads because it's definitely some good stuff. So just my 2 cents. The platform seems to be really cool. Uh, but even in this threads and TikTok, talk to us a little bit about how do you approach being able to tell a story in such a short such a short time frame, and it ends up being something that your audience likes that you feel confident with. Talk to us about your process.
Yeah. So this is something that my clients struggle with all the time. They're like, well, that part of my story is so long and I'm so long winded, and there's no way I could get that down to like 30 seconds or a minute. And I always say, you don't have to tell the whole story. You can tell a small part of your story. You could literally just briefly touch on it. So, an example of this for me is I'm a content creator, but I also have chronic illnesses. I have
Sure,
fibromyalgia and I have migraines.
sure.
And so sometimes I'll talk about creating content as just like a low energy human being, and I'll touch on, my diagnoses, and, I'll say kind of like what I do to like navigate through that. And it hits so well with people because then it gets other people that are creating content and have chronic illnesses into my community. So you could literally take almost like bite-sized pieces of your story and infuse them into your content. It doesn't have to be a once upon a time I had a migraine, and like you could just take little bits and pieces and start throwing them into your content, and it's going to resonate with your people that also deal with those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're talking about, uh, embedding elements of your story into the process. And I,
Yeah, and again, like it's hard at first. Like you think like, oh, storytelling. So like I have to like set the stage with like the beginning, middle, and end.
yeah,
And it's not like that. Like something that I recommend people do, just because the culture of TikTok is so different from any other social media platform, is just scroll through your For You page and see what makes you stop.
yeah,
See what kinds of stories make you listen. See what kinds of stories make you go to a part two of that video. And then you don't have to copy them, but start infusing bits and pieces of that into your own content, because
yep,
ultimately you want to make something that you would also watch.
for sure. I'll make a small caveat to that. If you've
Yeah.
already been like binging on like a homogenous type of content, make a new page. Cause your for you page is all jacked up and you're gonna see the same stuff. Um a friend of mine, Ursula, she's also on TikTok, is heavy on the content. She talks about it a lot, like how she has two pages. One where she creates a ton of marketing content, content creation content, and then the second where she does not make any of that stuff. And the difference in the feed is just so dynamic. And most of the content that she creates on the marketing page comes from the other side, where she's like, I'm only engaging with stuff that makes me laugh, makes me smile. Because when I'm over here and engaging, like my feed is constantly being curated to the things that TikTok thinks I want to see. So uh I have started doing it, and when I say started, I mean I made the page and like got on there for a little while, but never really did anything with it. So after talking to you, I'm gonna spend some time on that other TikTok page because I I definitely get that like I don't want to call it creator's block, but I would say I get stuck in my own formats,
Mhm.
right? Like my comfort zone. I'm much better at getting outside of my comfort zone probably when I make longer form content than I am with TikTok style content. So appreciate that bit of feedback and that tip for folks, kind of reminding
Yeah.
us the value of like stepping back and being willing to observe, and what that can mean for us. So when you are creating content, what are some tools or technologies that you're using in order to make the content creation process easier on you?
You guys are going to love me cuz I do not use a whole lot at all. I make this as simple as pie for myself. So, I usually, if I'm being honest, I just record right in the TikTok app and I
Okay.
use the in app editor of TikTok because it has actually gotten quite good.
Yeah.
If I'm recording a piece of content on my camera roll and I'm like, ooh, that hit really well, I want to also post that to Reels and YouTube Shorts. I will use a free app called CapCut, CAPCUT. It's just a vertical video editing app.
Yeah.
There's a desktop version, but it's like really clunky to maneuver. The app is chef's kiss. I will edit on there, and to be quite honest, it looks a lot like the TikTok video editor, so
Yeah.
I'll use that. Sometimes I'll use my little external mic from Rode.
Okay.
Don't do that too often.
Okay.
Uh and that's literally it. Oh, and I guess like for content ideas, so for my clients, I use a project management system called Airtable.
Sure.
But for myself, I use my handy dandy notes app on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And I literally like just I call it a brain dump because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just taking all of the thoughts that are running through my head, any questions that like clients have asked me that I'm like, "Oh, that's a great video to make an answer on," and I'll
Yep.
just like put it right in my notes app. So when I go to record, and I do record quite a bit at a time. It's called batch recording. When I go to record, I know exactly what I'm about to riff on.
Yeah. Now, when you're doing your uh, idea collection, right? Are you just writing the questions down, or you dropping some bullets about what you want to talk about, or do you collect the ideas and then kind of formulate, this is kind of what I'm going to say, or are you just like, I got all my questions, we're just going to go on camera and let it fly?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. When I very, very, very first started on TikTok, I would make myself like a loose script,
Yep.
but now it is strictly bullet points that probably if anyone read, they would be like, what are you saying? But
Yeah.
I'll know when I look at it, I'll know exactly what I want to like uh again like riff on
Yeah.
or talk about. So it's literally just bullet points. of again, like questions, part of my story, things that I'm going through as a content creator. Um, and I don't script them out anymore.
Yeah. I find that to be like the progression, the like evolution of the content creator, right? When you first
Yeah.
start, it feels like you need a lot, and your stuff grows, your space grows, or the tools that you use grows, and as you start to like settle in, you actually start to minimize what you use to some degree, and then like the scripting and all that stuff kind of goes out the window. I remember my first like short, it was scripted,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm like target market, and that's it. Like we're getting
Yeah,
on.
and you just know. You just like intuitively know.
Yeah, we're getting on TikTok. We're making a video about target market. We'll make a couple, right? And that's enough, right? So I might break that into a few questions or something like that, but for the most part, it's really sparse. Um, did you find that to be an intentional progression for you, or was it just like you just woke up one day and realized like I don't need to do this much?
Uh I think it was intentional because for me, scripting out the videos and having to spend that extra time on my content was overwhelming, and it was like stifling how much I was putting out and what I was saying. And I'm going to be honest, like I put out so much content when I was first getting on TikTok and
Yeah,
growing and seeing what was working. And so I think one day I said, no more, like no more scripts, no more like harsh planning. You know what you're talking about.
yep.
Just get on there and talk.
Mm,
Like just talk, brain dump into your phone, and you can cut out all of the silent pauses, all of the things that you repeat, and just talk.
yeah. So you said something I think like is super critical here. You got to a point where you were like, you know what you're talking about. When did you realize that like you knew what you were talking about? What happened?
Hmm. Okay. I'm not a conceited person, but
Yeah.
this is what I felt in my bones when I realized that like I am the expert here when it comes to TikTok. I was like, I would not hire anybody else to help me with my TikTok right now because I, first of all, I did so much research. I've worked with so many different industries that I just like intuitively started knowing what worked.
Okay.
And so once I got to that point that was like, no, I feel really content and at ease like with my knowledge. Uh I was like golden.
Yeah.
And
About how
again, there's always more to learn, but
absolutely.
I always, like I mentioned at the beginning, I always kind of leverage that beginner energy of like it's exciting to learn new things, not
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm so stupid. How could I not have known XYZ?
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, like that is awesome. Like I'm gonna start implementing that, or I didn't know that. Like I'm gonna stop doing this. So I just like leverage that beginner energy of like there's always something to learn. But I'm like really content with like my knowledge base.
Okay. So about you, there's two questions that I have here for you. So you said at some point I got to a place that I was intuitively kind of solving or answering the questions to what works. At what point was that for you? Like, how long were you on TikTok before you're like, you know what? This is going to work better than this. And then when you test it, your test validating your thinking.
Probably like a year in.
Okay.
A year in, I had like gotten past that like 1,000 follower mark. If you're not
Yeah.
on TikTok, 1,000 followers is a very monumental moment because it means that you can go live and you can put a link in your bio.
Yeah.
And once I got past that point, I feel like I just started like gaining traction like crazy because I was, and I still do, like, I forever test things.
Yep.
My messaging, different hooks, different like stories, different like weird quirks that I have, different humor. And I just like got so comfortable with playing,
Yeah.
which I think makes a really great content creator. And to be quite honest, unless you have a lot of money for like UGC creators, a lot of business owners have to be content creators
Yeah,
in
for sure.
today's day and age, especially if you are a personal brand. Uh and so I just got used to, again, like playing, and that happened like about a year in.
Mm. And then you said that when you first started, you put out a lot of content. What was a lot?
So a lot was at least 3 videos a day,
Okay,
Monday to Friday.
gotcha.
And y'all might hate me for this, but if you plan on using TikTok and using it well and you are first starting on there, I still recommend that.
Yeah,
One, because it's going to help you grow fast, and two, it's going to make you super comfortable on the platform, because the only way to get comfortable, especially on video, is to do. So it's almost like killing two birds with one stone. You're putting out content and seeing what hits, but then you're also doing yourself a solid by getting super comfortable in front of the camera.
yeah. So, if you were to start over today from zero on TikTok, would you still do 3 videos, or would you ratchet it up?
I think I would stick to 3. I
Okay.
mean, there were days that I did more than 3,
Right.
100%. 100%.
Absolutely.
Like if I had the energy that day and like my juices were flowing, I wouldn't let any videos sit in my drafts. They would all go out. Um but I would start with 3 because I also have to be really cognizant of my energy.
Sure.
And so you, whoever's listening, you need to pay attention to your energy and see what you have the bandwidth for.
Got
It's
it.
gonna definitely be like, I call it the sprint to 1,000, right? So you're gonna put that elbow grease into it up front,
Yep.
but you are not going to have to put out that much content forever. Like I do not put out 3 pieces of content a day now.
How many pieces are you putting out now?
Um, one a day, like maybe 2. Uh, and like definitely, I don't think I put out like any on the weekends.
Yeah.
And my TikTok is still like, I mean, I have experienced crazy growth in the last few months.
Yeah.
Like I
You're
cannot even fathom how big my audience has gotten.
Yep.
But that's not what blows my mind. What blows my mind is also how many engaged people I have in my community, which is that much more important to me.
right. You're about to pop the 20K number. You're
Yes, I
like
am.
so then
I worked my little patootie off for that 20K.
yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think that creating content on a platform for marketing about marketing is one of the hardest things to do.
Mhm.
Um, because if we're honest, most small business owners don't actually want marketing. They don't want
Yeah.
it. Uh, if they could do it without it, they would. So anytime I see a marketing person's page that's popping off, I'm like, yeah, good for you. 'Cause this is hard out here.
It
when you're
is.
making
Because there's a lot of us too.
yes, there are a lot of us, a lot, and so it makes it even more. And we're all saying, well, I don't want to say we're all saying different things. A lot of us are talking about different stuff. And so our audience is also confused.
Yeah.
Um, and we can go there another day, uh, because there's a lot there. But congratulations on hitting that milestone. So talk
Thank
to
you.
talk to us a little bit about the strategy. So it sounds like from 0 to 100 or 0 to 1,000, you're like, yo, three or more posts a day. You got to be foot on the gas because that's a Miley Cyrus reference. It's a climb, right?
It's a climb.
Ah, so from there, from 1,000, What's the next big milestone? 1,000 to what?
I think for me, my next big jump was like 1,000 to 3,000.
Okay.
And then at 3,000, something happened.
Okay.
And I got my first viral video, which is where
Wait,
the
you got
majority. Sorry, go ahead.
you said you got your first viral video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Which is where the majority of the followers came from.
Mm,
Not so a lot of them came from that video.
sure.
But what I did after that video, which was it, the video started with stop starting your videos with hey guys and
I
try
remember that
this and yep and try this instead. And I literally went through different business owners, not just marketing type business owners. I did an example of an occupational therapist, that I did an example of a business coach, I did an example of a candle maker, and I gave specific examples of don't do this, try this instead.
Yep.
Like really explicit examples, and it popped off. And
Did.
so what I did from a strategy standpoint is I made a whole series out of it because
Mm,
people were commenting and they were like, "Well, what about for a clothing designer? What about for a painter? What about for somebody that makes cups like the tumblers?" And so I made a series out of it, but I started it with the same hook. So my audience knew that familiarity and they knew what they were going to get. And from those videos, again, I leveraged something that my audience told me, like, Sarah, we're eating this up. And I kept making more because I'm listening to my audience.
right.
So that got me like the majority of my followers. And I think the reason why I keep growing is because I've started sharing a lot of my personal story. So again, like my chronic illnesses, the fact that I love me some Broadway musicals, I share about my dogs. So, like, I'm differentiating myself as a human being and I'm getting engaged community members from doing that. And I
Got it.
also go live. I try and go live at least once a week.
Okay. Very nice. So from you hit your viral video, and that took you to about how many followers?
Mm. That took me to probably I want to say like 11K.
Okay. So the climb from 3 to 10, you feel like was easier than your climb from 0 to 1,000.
Oh yeah, because it happened from one video.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
just some transparency, when you see some of these creators with big followings, they probably got the majority of those followers from a few videos that popped off.
Yep. Listen, I would say my climb from 3 to 5 was cake. I had like
Mhm.
one video that like damn near netted me 1,500 followers.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
It's
like
awesome when that happens.
it is. It's like I need about five more of these. Right. Like,
Mhm.
but absolutely. it is absolutely true that, and that goes to a concept that I probably need to explore on my channel for my new marketers and transitioning folks. But it's the Pareto principle. It's like, you know, the majority of your audience is only around came from a small effort of what you put out.
Mhm.
It's true for most things. It's definitely true for TikTok. I find that, most of my content ends up being cannon fodder for the actual good stuff where people are like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Didn't like half of the other stuff that you put out, but I like that. Right. Uh, I saw a lot of, my audience grow, and I don't know why I stopped doing these, but I did. I think as creators, sometimes we're like, I'm tired of that.
Yeah.
I'm tired of that. I don't want to do it anymore. But I used to do these videos, stuff you don't want to hear as a small business owner, and those would almost consistently get 2,500 views,
Mhm.
and it's like that series on top of some other videos is probably responsible to about 50% of my followers, maybe even more, right? And it's like I don't know why I do know why I stopped. I shouldn't have stopped. But it's like, how do you deal with that? And how do you work with that with your clients? This point of like, I'm tired of making that video.
Yeah, I always honor that energy
Yeah.
because you can always come back to it,
Right.
but if you keep doing it and it like is draining you or burning you out, then you are just going to start resenting content, and that's going to be like super detrimental, especially to people that market their business organically, like without paid ads. Like
Yes.
for me, I do not use any paid ads. Like it's all organic. And so I need to honor that energy. And something that I do is like, I always tell myself I can come back to concepts that have worked well in the past. Like if I'm in a rut, I'm like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let me look back at some things that like hit really well with my people and try it
Yes.
again. But like if I kept hammering, like, so for me, I got really burnt out on doing the stop starting your video with hey guys. I got super burnt out on that.
Yeah.
And so I stopped doing it. But I mean, probably if I went back and did it now, I'd feel kind of lit up about it because I let myself take that little reprieve from
Sure.
forcing the content out.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So we're getting close to the end of the show. Uh, just couple more questions, and this is more about if someone were to be looking to learn marketing today, or if you were looking to learn marketing today all over again, what are two resources that are like your go-to?
Mm. So I'm not going to have a professional answer for this.
Doesn't need to be.
I would still go to podcasts
Okay.
and YouTube
Sure.
because they are free, long form pieces of content that are accessible to everybody, and they're constantly being revamped. Unlike if you were to buy a course, who knows, that person probably made that like months ago or years ago and probably has crusty strategies, but like people make podcasts and YouTube videos like all the time. So I would go and first use free resources.
Okay.
um then like if you find something like really specific that you want to like uh zone in on when it comes to marketing, and you find someone that you vibe with and you really respect, like then sure, make an investment, but like start with some free resources.
Good stuff. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
What's your favorite YouTube channel that you're watching to learn?
Oh my gosh. My favorite YouTube channel is, oh my gosh, it's this girl that's a hypnotherapist. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I use her like meditations in the morning like almost
Okay.
every day.
Got it.
Y'all, I'm a little woo woo, a little
That's
bit.
Hey.
And she's really great. And there are actually a lot of hypnotherapists that focus on like hypnosis for business owners.
Yep.
Uh, because, and I mean, this is a whole other rabbit hole to dive down, but like mindset is a huge part of being successful in business. I
Absolutely.
used to think that was some BS, but it is actually like one of the most important parts of being successful in business.
Yes.
So, yeah, that I like listening to that hypnotherapy YouTube channel.
We could definitely go down the rabbit hole. I have some beef with mindset coaches.
Mm,
I do. I do. And I know some that I think they're great. I think that there are mindset coaches that focus a little too much on mindset and don't bring enough of the strategy tactic
yeah,
to the table. And there's only so much uh, clarifying your greatness before you actually have to like do something to be great.
sure.
This is another conversation, but I agree that mindset plays a huge role. Um,
Yeah,
there's just been a kind of like same thing with social media people. There's been such a huge pop up of these coaches, these social media people, these mindset people that like I think that it's gotten a little murky to figure out
for
who's
sure.
if they're salt or not. So
For sure. And just like to go off of that, it's like something that I hate hearing is like the buyer behavior has changed recently. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I think a lot of it has to do with that they have a lot more people to sort through now.
yeah,
And they've probably been screwed over at least once or twice
yes,
because there's a bunch of people that are like quite honestly not good at what they do.
yeah,
And so I think people are just a little bit more like protective of their investment because the online space is just so loud now. Like there's
yes,
just so many people.
absolutely. And we probably could have a conversation about this. I don't think buying behavior as a whole has changed. The maturity of the buyer has definitely changed, right? You think about
Mhm.
like it's very similar like car sales. Like at one point, you only had the option of listening to the car salesman to be able to
Mhm.
provide you information. And
Yep.
then things like Kelly Blue Book started coming out and more information about like pricing. The internet popped up and now you can see pricing and compare really quickly. And so the buyer oftentimes is more educated than the expert or the salesperson in the situation. And so they come to the
Sure.
table with a ton more information. Uh, just like you, right? You were like, I pulled a lot of free stuff and was able to piece together a solid education on what I wanted to do. Our buyers are coming to the table pre-educated, at least some semblance of an idea of what things should look like,
Mhm.
and professionals are not hip to that, uh, and feeling like what they have is enough, and buyers are coming to the table challenging that. And to your point, there are still a lot that are taking a course or reading a book and then claiming to be an expert in the space, and people are starting to sniff that stuff out, and they are not understanding why they're not able to apply old ways of learning things and jumping in the deep end to a situation where TikTok alone, if you follow enough creators, within 20 hours, you have a substantial education. And that wasn't a thing before. Right. So, Sarah, it has been amazing talking to you. You and I, like, oh my God, just even talking about this, the end of this, I think, is its own show,
Yes.
because there's so much here. But that is a wrap of today's episode of Marketing Stuff. I hope that you found this helpful and are able to find something that you're able to apply in your business, in your marketing, learning, and education. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments of the YouTube. If you're watching this or listening to it on Spotify, share the information below. Or if you're anywhere else, you can find us on Facebook at Marketing Stuff Podcast and drop your questions in our DMs. I answer absolutely every single question that comes through. We can't wait for you to join us again on the next episode, where we will continue to give you the latest and greatest in marketing. Thanks you for so much for listening. Until next time, stay out here, winning, y'all.